Back in 2019, Seiko released one of their most exciting watches in years, and it came surprisingly out of the Seiko 5 sports line. I'm talking about the SRPE series of watches. A lot of people have nicknamed this one the Dress KX, but I think it is one of the most versatile watches that I've ever seen. If you put it on different straps, you can completely transform the look of the watch and the times that you'll be able to use it, which I'll be doing later on this video, so definitely stay tuned for that. If I were restarting my collection, this would be the first watch I would get. I'm a little bit late to the party, but today I'm finally going to be reviewing the Seiko SRPE, specifically the SRPE 57. So take a quick look and then we'll get into it. Hey guys, welcome back to Just the Watch. My name's Dave. I live in Japan and I love to collect affordable watches. So yeah, Seiko and their entry-level Seiko 5 sports line is just an amazing place to start. And you know, it's kind of a little bit underrated, I think. I think we've kind of gotten sucked into looking at a lot of these Chinese homages that have higher specs at lower prices, and it's kind of turned Seiko off to a lot of collectors. And I think that's unfortunate because while Seiko has been increasing their prices, which is not ideal, they still have a lot to offer to entry-level collectors. And as is often the case when it comes to Seiko watches, the longer a watch is in circulation, the lower the price drops, and these SRPE watches can regularly be found for around $200. And that's for an automatic watch with Seiko's excellent 4R36 movement inside of it. And there are three things that I absolutely love about this watch that I want to talk about in this video. The first is the design, which I think is amazing. The second is the versatility, which is also excellent and really allows this to be kind of a one-watch collection. And the third is the fact that it is easily upgradable, which is great because there are some problems with this watch. There's things that I don't like, but all of the things I don't like can be fixed with aftermarket parts, which is amazing for an entry-level watch like this. But first I want to talk about the design, because things like subpar bracelets or hardlex crystals, those can be fixed and replaced, but a bad design can't. I think a lot of people kind of fall for this where they look at a watch based purely on the specs and the price and they think, oh, that's a great deal, but then they get it. And if the design isn't a good design, you're not really going to enjoy wearing it. So personally, if I have to choose between two watches where one of them has excellent specs and a low price, but not that great of a design, and the other one has subpar specs, but an excellent design, I'm going to lead towards the one with the better design. And design is definitely one of the strong points of this watch. The SRPE line is essentially a slimmed down, slightly smaller version of the SRPD or 5KX with the bezel removed. So it's basically a dive watch without a dive bezel. This isn't a particularly original idea. Tudor did the same thing with the Black Bay 39 and 41. And while this may seem like kind of a small change, it actually really transforms the watch into a totally different kind of watch, not only giving it a totally different personality, but really expanding these situations in which it can be worn. Essentially, you're going to retain a high level of water resistance, great legibility, and great after dark performance, but put all that into a much more discreet package that can be worn in almost any situation. And a lot of luxury brands have a watch like this in their catalog. I think the Omega Aquaterra and the Rolex Oyster Perpetual both kind of fit into the same category of highly versatile sports watches. But there's not a lot of affordable brands that have really pioneered this style of watch. And that's one of the things I think that makes this SRPE line so interesting from a design standpoint. Because this is a watch that actually has a very long history and heritage. The basic design of this watch, the case shape, the dial design, the handset, the markers, that large crown at 4 o'clock, all of these can be traced back to Seiko's 7548 quartz watch, which was released in 1978. That watch was the grandfather of the phenomenally popular SKX, which in turn was the inspiration for the relaunched Seiko sports line, which started with that SRPD diver until you finally get the Dress KX or this SRPE series. So this is a design that has almost 50 years of history and heritage behind it. And it's a design that is pure Seiko. This is not something that was copied from the big Swiss luxury brands. This is something that has been crafted and refined and honed for, again, almost 50 years in Japan. And now you're getting that design DNA in a watch that you can pick up for around $200. And it's a very cool design. And this version of it with that bezel removed is one of the biggest revolutions in this design since it was introduced back in 1978. It's a design that looks great, but doesn't look like anything else out there. The dial is highly legible with a unique arrow-shaped minute hand combined with a syringe hour hand and a lollipop second hand, with a classic triangle at 12 o'clock and oval-shaped markers at 6 and 9 that all have these little syringes pointing towards the center of the dial. And as is the case with pretty much all of the Seiko 5 sports models, there are a ton of different color options available. This particular one has gold outlines on the hands and the markers, which makes it look just a little bit more fancy and maybe a little bit more suitable for dressy occasions. But because this dial and handset really came from a dive watch, it has a much bolder look than you would typically get on a dress watch. And it also offers a much higher level of legibility both in the daylight and after dark. Seiko is well known for their Lumibright Lume, and while this watch lost a lot on its journey from a dive watch down into its current form, the Lume has only taken a slight step down. It's not quite as bright as what you'll find on Seiko's professional level divers, but it's still very bright and easily competes with dive watches from most other brands on the market. Another very unique feature of this watch is the case shape and design. The case has a very substantial and sturdy feel to it, but at the same time features a lot of sleek and elegant curves. It features a 4 o'clock crown position, which is something that Seiko really pioneered. It moves the crown into a place where it's less likely to dig into your wrist, making it more comfortable to wear in active activities. And the crown is protected by full crown guards, which is actually fairly useful because this crown is not a screw-down crown. You can make the case that a screw-down crown doesn't really need crown guards, and that if it has it, it might just be primarily decorative. But in this case, because this is not a screw-down crown, the crown guards offer a lot of sturdy protection to that crown, preventing it from getting knocked around and snagged on things. And by the same token, a watch with 100 meters of water resistance and crown guards really doesn't need a screw-down crown, in my opinion. It's always nice to have one, but functionally this is a pretty complete package. And all of these things really show how much thought has gone into this design over the years. And that's one of the things that really makes this watch so attractive to me. These design elements have been appreciated and used and proven by generations of watch enthusiasts and professionals. They have a distinct look and style that is original to Seiko. And that's something that is very rare to find in this $200 price point. Okay, before we get into the second reason why I love this watch, make sure you check out justthewatch.com. You can pick up some sweatshirts or hoodies like this one. I've also got a lot of t-shirts with other cool original watch themed designs. Help support the channel, check it out. But let's talk about the second reason why I like the Dress KX, and that is its insane versatility. This watch gets its versatility from a combination of the design and the specs that are built into it. For one, you're getting 100 meters of water resistance, which means that this watch is perfect for pretty much any water activities other than scuba diving. You'll have no problem taking this swimming in the pool or the ocean, snorkeling, whatever you want to do. You don't really have to worry about water damage. But it also has very wearable dimensions as well, with a 40mm case that's only 12mm thick and a very short 44mm lug-to-lug. So 40mm is kind of the perfect size for an everyday watch. It's not going to look too small unless you have an absolutely massive wrist, and that 44mm lug-to-lug will make it wear comfortably even if you have a smaller than average wrist. One of the problems with dive watches is they can be too thick or bulky to really wear in some situations. This one feels great on the wrist in all situations, and it's much more comfortable and more wearable than its big brother. At 43mm in diameter and 13mm thick, the Seiko 5 Sports SRPD is a much bulkier watch than this one. And because this watch doesn't have a dive bezel, it kind of gets around a lot of the hesitations that people have with different straps that you might wear with a watch and different situations that you might wear a watch in. By changing the strap on this watch, you can completely transform it into a number of different watches. For instance, I put it on this cool army green Zulu strap from Vario and took it out hiking, and it turned into a perfect field watch. It was small and unobtrusive on the wrist, very comfortable on that nylon strap, and yet it retained all the water resistance that I need, giving me a peace of mind that if I went splashing through a stream or for a quick swim in the ocean, it would have no problem coming with me. And on that army green strap, it really took on kind of a cool military feel to it. again playing into Seiko's history and heritage of being one of the most popular watches worn by armed forces personnel throughout the world. But if you took that same watch and put it onto a nice leather strap like this pebbled Epson leather strap that I have from Nomad Watchworks, it can totally pass as a dress watch. If you walked into your workplace or a job interview wearing this watch with this strap and a suit and tie, nobody would even give it a second look. And on a bracelet, you can pretty much wear this watch with anything at any time, anywhere. The bracelet is comfortable, it's waterproof, and it looks fancy enough to wear with a suit and tie or whatever you want. And again, there's a lot of different configurations that you can get this particular watch with. Some of them come on a NATO strap, some of them come on a bracelet, some of them come on a leather strap. I always like to get it on the bracelet because that's the hardest thing to replace. And the bracelet that comes with this watch is fine for the price point. It's not a particularly great bracelet, but it looks decent, it's comfortable. It doesn't tug any hairs on your wrist, but it's kind of just barely good enough. It's the kind of thing you wish Seiko would have upgraded a bit, but at this price point, I'm not going to complain too hard. Okay, so beyond the bracelet, I do have a couple other problems with this watch, but all of the problems that I have with it can actually be fixed because this watch has one of the greatest selection of aftermarket mod parts available of any entry-level watch out there. So this is an affordable watch. It's a watch that doesn't have the highest specifications. There are things on this that I wish Seiko would have done better. And there is a valid argument that other watch brands will give you more for your money than Seiko does at this price point, at least when it comes to specifications. Most glaringly, this watch doesn't come with a sapphire crystal. It comes with a hardlex crystal, which means that it's almost certainly going to get scratched at some point if you wear it enough. And as mentioned before, the bracelet's not the greatest. The clasp is sort of cheap and pressed. It has hollow end links, and the links themselves are kind of questionable construction. It's not uncomfortable, but it also doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. And this version, because it's kind of a little bit of a fancier one, it comes with a polished bezel. Some of the other ones come with a brushed bezel, which I think I might have preferred because polished bezels often pick up scratches, especially if you want to kit this one out as like a field watch. And one final complaint that I have is I feel like the chapter ring in this one just looks a little bit on the cheap side. That one's kind of a nitpick, but is something that I've noticed a few times. The printing just doesn't look that sharp and it looks kind of flat. And on most watches from most other brands, you would kind of be out of luck on a lot of these things. But Seiko has one of the most vibrant modding communities around, and because of that, this particular watch, the SRPE line, has a ton of options for aftermarket parts. With a few inexpensive tools and a little bit of know-how that can generally be gleaned from watching videos on YouTube and a little bit of extra cash, I could fix every single one of those problems that I mentioned. In fact, Namoki Mods already sent me over a new sapphire crystal, which I'll be looking forward to installing on this because that's the biggest problem I have with these specifications of this watch. But I've also seen some pretty cool bracelets that Uncle Seiko's been putting out. I might look at swapping over. And if that polished bezel gets too scratched up, I might look at getting a brushed one instead. And again, very few other watches have this catalog of parts available to make these kinds of changes and upgrades, which is another thing that I really like about this watch. Now, my current day job is serving as a missionary in Japan, so I mostly prepare sermons in Japanese. But before I did that, I worked in IT for a while, and I've always had a fascination with computers. I think I built my first computer when I was in high school, and I've never went out and bought a desktop PC since then. It's always been building them. And one of the greatest things about doing that is you can build a PC on a very low budget and then upgrade the parts as you go as you get more money. And that might be why this watch is so appealing to me, because you can kind of do the same thing here. You can buy the watch for $200, and when you get it, it's not the perfect watch. It's not everything that you want it to be, but over time, you can slowly upgrade it as you save up and get a little bit more money and a little bit more know-how, and you can turn it into that perfect watch. If you start looking online, there's just so many different things that people have done with this platform to completely transform it, and other things that people have done to just make minor improvements to it that make it a little bit better. Now, Namoki Mods did give me that crystal for free, so I'll drop a link down to their site down below. Check it out because, again, they're a great source for parts for this particular watch. They have a ton of different things that you can do with it. And that's probably going to be a video going forward because there are some changes I'd like to do. Nothing major, but again, I think like improving the bracelet and the crystal and maybe the bezel are all things I might do just to make this into kind of the perfect version of this watch. Because I think the design and the idea for this watch from Seiko is something that's special And I think it deserves to have a little bit higher specs. And I love that I have the option to do that going forward. Okay, guys, that's going to wrap up my review for this watch. Let me know what you think if you own one of these. It seems like most of the people who actually get one absolutely love it, but I feel like a lot of people, again, they have a hard time getting over that whole idea of Seiko going up market, of not including sapphire crystals, of being able to go to AliExpress and getting better spec watches for cheaper money, that they tend to kind of overlook these watches. And again, I really think that's a mistake. I really love this watch. I love the fact that I'll be able to upgrade it, and I feel like I will be improving it and eventually turning it into an excellent watch, bringing these specifications up to meet that excellent design. If you're interested in picking up this watch, I'll leave an Amazon affiliate link down below you can check out. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.